everyone, it's Emily and Inka. Today I wanted to talk about something which has been on my mind to bring up on YouTube like several times in the past, but I kind of never felt, I don't know, like I could express what I wanted to express correctly, and I still don't actually feel like I'm going to get my point across. But I'm just going to give it a go. I'm also going to be changing Inka into a little dress that will be like a billion sizes too big. Yeah, it will be a billion and one sizes too big. But it's been one I've been wanting to put on her for a while, and it's really hot. Well, I say really hot, it's English hot. Yeah, the weather is super nice. I actually went shopping yesterday, went charity shop shopping and got her this little dress. It was 75p. Yeah, I'm just going to let that sink in. From Ralph Lauren, indeed, which actually, because of the topic of this video, which is about money, yeah, it's kind of a fitting outfit for her to be wearing, I think. What a designer baby. 75p, yo. Oh, she ballin'. Anyway, so you read the title. I'm going to be dividing this video up into 3 sections, and then I'm going to be kind of like talking a little bit on the sections, and hopefully, I'm fingers crossed that I've got the comments on this video, but if I don't, there will be a community post. So yeah, so I'll tell you the sections. The first section is X amount too much to spend on a doll? The second section is X amount too much to spend on anything that we buy purely for pleasure? And then the third is wealth intrinsically wrong? So I'm sure a lot of you, especially who have been in this hobby for a while, have come across kind of, I suppose, judgment. We all kind of face judgment for how much we are prepared to spend on these dolls. I remember when I first got into the hobby, spending £80 on a doll was extortionate. Like, that's how I felt. I was like, £80 for a doll? Are you kidding me? And that very quickly changed when I, realised just how beautiful, special, and how much I would enjoy them, I suppose. So I think as collectors, how much we are prepared to spend on a doll really changes, and I definitely don't think anybody should ever be judged for how much they choose to spend on a doll, especially as sort of, I don't know, the key word for me here is on a doll, because let's face it, we spend a ridiculous amount of money on things that bring us joy. I say ridiculous amount, but when you think of things like a wedding or a holiday or a fancy car, I mean, you can insert anything, an extension on your house, you could insert anything here basically. Society doesn't look at that and think, well, that's weird, or that's sort of somehow immoral to spend that amount of money on that, because to the wider sort of group of society, they kind of think that it's normal to spend, a significant amount of money on something that, society holds valuable, like perhaps a bigger house, a swimming pool, fancy holidays. You could just insert anything there. So that is something that does bother me, because I think it's silly to judge somebody for what they spend their money on. I know personally, I am not well enough to travel. And that would be sort of what, if I was well, I would want to spend my money on. I know, given that I cannot travel currently, there is nothing, there is literally nothing I could buy that has brought me as much joy as this baby has. And I actually think a lot of us can kind of relate to that. I think many of us would actually rather have one of these dolls than a fancy holiday, than a, foofy wedding dress. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we would. Whoa. I don't know if you guys hear that, but there is construction work going on and this scared me. Anyway, yeah, I just think these dolls are worth a lot in our hearts, I suppose, and nobody can tell you, what you should spend your money on. So, okay, so that was the first section. So then in my second question, I feel like we have to ask ourselves, is it moral to spend X amount of money on literally anything that we buy purely for pleasure? If you think, the number of people in the world, the number of children starving in this world, now you're getting to the really, like, the nitty gritty questions. Is it okay to spend, to take a silly example, all of those billionaires spent all that money to restore Notre Dame Cathedral after the fire. It was a ridiculous amount of money, as I'm sure, like, so many of you are aware. And I think the whole incident just broke a lot of people's hearts, including mine, because that is a beautiful building, but it is literally just a building, and I just don't find that there's any justification for, people to be pledging money for a building when, children in Syria are dying and hungry. It just feels, it honestly blew my mind. Like, how could you as a human be willing to spend, £1 million, I just plucked that number out of nowhere, £1 million to restore a ceiling, and yet, people starving, that doesn't motivate you. I mean, anyway, that's sort of a irrelevant example. It's just, I was highly triggered. I'm sure a lot of you guys were too. But yeah, I just feel like we could go on for a while debating, or I could with myself, I suppose, debate, myself for a while on what it's moral to spend large amounts of money on. And I have found myself, especially lately, I feel very materialistic. I don't know why. I think my lifestyle is 100% not what I want it to be, let's face it. I'm a very adventurous person, and being ill, obviously it cages you. And I think definitely, I don't know, this is getting really personal, but the kind of isolation that I've had to go through in my life has made me very attached to belongings and things. And I noticed that, I am just getting more and more materialistic, more and more greedy as a human, and yeah, it makes me think, because we all justify things that we buy, and I spent a large amount of money on this doll and I don't regret it. We all spend huge amounts of money on, holidays, anything really. But in a world where so many people really have nothing and no option to have things, no matter how hard they work, is that right? And sort of, I don't know, because I feel like everybody deserves to spend the money they earn on things that make them happy. There has to be some kind of balance, because, you know, what a miserable life it would be if we never ever, you know, treated out. Sorry, this is just so not working. Look at that. Look how big that is. Although that looks really cute to me. I don't know. I just had to see what she was like in this coral colour. And I think she looks cute. Hey yards. Hey yardies. My mummy's ranting. Ignore her. So anyway, yeah, I do feel like everybody should be allowed, you know, to spend money on what makes them happy. However, there must be a line that, you know, I cross, many people cross, where it becomes selfish, and I'm honestly not sure where that line is. Definitely in terms of these dolls, I don't feel like that line has been crossed, and I suppose that moves us on to my third point. So this is so much too big that I am going to take it off. This poor little girl, she doesn't deserve to be swamped in this dress. Oh gosh, do you hear that, guys? The construction's going to do my head in. Anyway, point number three. This has kind of brought me to my actual question, and that is wealth intrinsically wrong? And you guys probably think I'm getting so too deep into this, like from just a few posts that I've been seeing around about people complaining about, you know, people spending too much on dolls. But this is my question: is excessive wealth wrong? And I feel like, as I talked about, you know, a few seconds ago, that there's a line, and I do think excessive wealth is immoral. You only have to look at people like I don't know, I don't want to pick on people, but let's just like pull people out of the air. You know, you only have to turn the TV on and catch an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians to realise that these people have made their millions from inappropriate tapes and makeup. They're not helping humanity or in fact anything, and they're using their money to buy yachts and handbags, and when it reaches that level, then I'm not sure. I think just the line between, you know, you're treating yourself because you've worked hard for something and just being completely corrupt, it has just been crossed. It's been crossed so far. You know, I used to be one of those really like lame people who watched all of the housewives of, you know, Beverly Hills and Orange County, and like I was into it. Just judge me because I judge myself. But like every episode was just like, oh my god, the wealth. And I don't know, I literally, every time there is an Olympic Games, I'm picking on the most stupid things right now, and I completely realise that, but every time there's an Olympic Games, or maybe like my favourite, you know, my favourite artists have done a huge concert or something, I'm like, oh my god, the money that would have been spent on that. You know, I can't even like perceive the amount of money that huge corporations spend on, you know, things. And there was all that hoo-ha a couple of years ago about the Olympic opening ceremony and how much that cost, and that, you know, people had to move, you know, from their homes because of the buildings and all of that kind of stuff. I don't know, I definitely think we crossed the line, we crossed a huge line, and it's sort of not, I don't know, it's not talked about enough, I don't think. So the last thing I want to bring up, which I guess is a stretch, to kind of use this to kind of I guess, prove my line theory. But there is a political philosopher called John Rawls. He was an extremely interesting man. He was American, I believe. He was a liberal. I don't know, he was just incredibly fascinating. Anyway, he had a book called The Theory of Justice, which I have not read. So I've read inserts of it because I did a course a few years ago where you like had to study about it, which was fascinating actually. So yeah, basically his theory of justice, I suppose, is all about designing society in the fairest way possible. So to explain it really badly, basically what you had to do was imagine yourself in this thing he called the original position, behind what he called the veil of ignorance. And in this original position, behind this veil, you were going to enter society, but you had no idea who you were going to be. You didn't know if you were black, white, man, woman, rich, poor. You had no idea. You didn't know anything sort of about the social standings that you would be born into. And it was from this original position behind this veil of ignorance that he said we must design a fair society. And I think hearing about his theories really kind of changed my perspective, because I know it sounds like ridiculously simple. It's just basically saying, you know, don't be biased and don't, you know, do things just in your favour. But I feel like when you actually really kind of imagine a world that is designed like this, it looks so beyond different from the world that we live in that it's actually like a little bit horrifying. And I think it's from that, you know, me as an individual had to come to the conclusion that, you know, the super rich are doing something extremely wrong. And yeah, that's basically my point. So anyway, that was my video, guys. I know it got a little bit deep, but I'm a very deep person. Doesn't that sound stupid? That sounds like the shallowest thing anyone can say. No, I like, I don't know, discussing things like this, things that I feel are important. And I've been seeing, I guess, so many posts, judgmental posts, I'm going to say, about people who have bought, you know, very, very highly expensive dolls. And I just don't think it's justified, because I think wealth is so comparative and there are so many things, as I've talked about. You know, there are so many people who are spending, you know, extortionate amounts of money on, you know, huge and ridiculous things. And those are the people that we should, you know, those are the people who I feel are crossing the line, and who, you know, need to be aware of that, I suppose. But I don't think the average Joe who buys, you know, reborn in silicone dolls should feel guilty. So yeah, that's kind of my take. If you have opinions on this, whether you kind of agree with me or whether you don't, you know, it really doesn't matter. I totally won't be offended. Yeah, and I'm just gonna, like, fingers crossed that I have comments, but I'm not holding out any hope, to be honest, because sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not. YouTube is like really trolling me at the moment. Like, it's just, I don't know what I do. Like, I pretty much tag my videos the same. I'm not putting baby in the title. Like, I'm being very careful. But yes. So anyway, me and Inka will say goodbye, and thank you for listening to this kind of strange video. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Bye.